"Sir, my mommy's crying in the bathroom." The CEO stepped in and did something no one expected. The afternoon train to Manchester was delayed again. Michael Harrison stood in the center of King's Cross Station, his leather briefcase in one hand, phone in the other. At 42, he'd made this journey countless times. Chief executive of Harrison and Webb Financial Services, 300 employees, meetings that moved millions, a life measured in minutes. He was reading an email when he felt a small tug in his coat. "Sir." Michael looked down. A little girl stood before him, no more than 4 years old, with golden curls falling past her shoulders. She wore a pink dress that had seen better days and clutched a worn teddy bear to her chest. Her eyes were wide and frightened. "Sir, please," she said again, her voice trembling. "My mommy's crying in the bathroom." Michael glanced around the crowded station. Travelers rushed past, focused on departures and arrivals, their own urgent destinations. No one else seemed to notice the child. He crouched down to her level, his pressed suit wrinkling against the station floor. "Where's your mommy, sweetheart?" The little girl pointed toward the ladies' restroom near Platform 7. Her small hand was shaking. "She went in there a long time ago," the child whispered. "She told me to wait by the bench, but I heard her crying." "She won't stop crying, sir." Michael felt something shift in his chest. He thought of his own daughter, Grace, now 21 and at university. He remembered when she was this small, when her whole world could crumble over a lost toy or a scraped knee. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Emma." "Emma, I'm Michael. Can you show me where you were sitting?" She took his hand without hesitation, her tiny fingers disappearing into his palm. They walked to a bench near the restroom where a small pink backpack sat alone, a juice box laid on its side, empty. "You wait right here, Emma. Don't move. All right, I'm going to help your mommy." Michael approached the restroom entrance, suddenly aware of how unusual this must look. A man in a three-piece suit hovering near the ladies' room. He caught the eye of a female station attendant passing by. "Excuse me, I need your help. There's a woman inside who may need assistance. Her daughter is worried about her." The attendant, a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes, nodded immediately. "Let me check." She disappeared inside. Michael returned to Emma, who sat clutching her bear, her legs swinging above the floor. "What's your bear's name?" he asked, sitting beside her. "Mr. Puddles. Mommy gave him to me when I was born. He looks like a very good bear." "He is. He helps when I'm scared." "Are you scared now?" Emma nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "Mommy's been sad for a lot of days. Since Daddy went away?" Before Michael could respond, the attendant emerged with a young woman, perhaps 30, with the same golden hair as her daughter. Her eyes were red and swollen, her hands trembling. When she saw Emma, she let out a sob. "Baby, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Emma ran to her mother, who dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around the child. Michael stood, preparing to leave, but the attendant touched his arm. "She's not well," the woman whispered. "Been in there nearly an hour. Says she has nowhere to go." Michael looked at the mother and daughter, holding each other on the cold station floor. He thought of walking away, of making his train, of the meeting in Manchester that couldn't wait. Instead, he knelt down again. "I'm Michael," he said to the woman. "Can I help you? Perhaps get you some tea? Something to eat?" The woman looked up at him, her face a mixture of shame and desperation. "I'm Sarah. We're fine. We'll be fine." But her voice betrayed her words. "The attendant says you might need help," Michael said carefully. "I'm not here to judge. I just want to know if you're safe." Sarah's composure crumbled. "We have tickets to Leeds. My sister lives there, but they're for tomorrow morning. And I spent our last money on them. I thought we could sleep in the station, but Emma's hungry, and it's cold, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I sat in that bathroom and realized I've failed her." She pulled Emma closer. "I've failed my baby." Emma looked up at her mother. "You didn't fail Mommy. You're the best mommy in the whole world." Michael felt his throat tighten. He thought of his own life. The comfortable home in Surrey. The car that cost more than some people earned in a year. The restaurant meals he barely noticed. When did he last stop to see someone else's struggle? "There's a premiere in 2 streets from here," he said quietly. "Let me book you a room for tonight, and we'll get Emma something to eat." "No," Sarah said immediately. "No, I can't accept that. You don't even know us." "You're right. I don't. But I know that little girl trusted me enough to ask for help. And I know that tomorrow you have a fresh start waiting in. Leeds, tonight doesn't need to be spent on a station bench." Sarah stared at him, tears streaming down her face. "Why would you do this?" Michael was quiet for a moment. He thought of his own daughter. He thought of his father, who had died 5 years ago, who'd always said that wealth without compassion was poverty of the worst kind. "Because someone once did something kind for me when I needed it most," he said. "And because it's the right thing to do." 20 minutes later, they sat in a small cafe near the station. Emma was eating fish fingers and chips with a focus of someone who hadn't had a proper meal in days. Sarah held a cup of tea in both hands, as if warming herself from the inside out. "His name was David," Sarah said quietly, watching her daughter eat. "My husband. He died 6 months ago. Aneurysm." One morning he was making breakfast, and the next he was gone. "I'm so sorry. We lived in Plymouth. But without David's income, I couldn't keep up with the rent. My sister offered to help. Said we could stay with her until I find work. So I sold what little we had left. Bought train tickets, and here we are. 2 bags of clothes and a teddy bear." She wiped her eyes. "I thought I was being strong for Emma. I thought if I just kept moving forward, we'd be all right. But in that bathroom, looking at myself in the mirror, I saw how broken I really am." "You're not broken," Michael said firmly. "You're here. Here. You made it this far. That's not broken. That's brave." Sarah looked at him. "You have children? A daughter?" "Grace. She's 21 now. Away at university. Sometimes I wonder if I was there enough when she was young. Work always seems so important. I'm sure you were a good father." "I tried to be. But days like today remind me that success isn't measured in boardrooms." Emma finished her meal and climbed down from her chair. She walked to Michael and placed something in his hand. It was a small drawing on a napkin, crayon lines showing a man holding hands with a little girl. "That's you helping me," Emma said solemnly. "You're a good person, sir." Michael looked at the simple drawing and felt something he hadn't felt in years. A sense of purpose that had nothing to do with profit margins or quarterly reports. After dinner, he walked them to the hotel. At the reception desk, he not only booked them a room, but left money for breakfast and a taxi to the station in the morning. "I can't repay you," Sarah said, holding Emma's hand. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to repay me. Just get to Leeds. Start fresh, and maybe one day, when you're able, help someone else who needs it." Sarah embraced him suddenly. This stranger who had stopped his important day to see their invisible crises. "You saved us today." "No," Michael said, looking down at Emma, who was half asleep against her mother's leg. "She saved me. She reminded me what matters." He made it to King's Cross just as the last train to Manchester was departing. He watched it pull away, then called his assistant to cancel the morning meeting. Some things, he realized, were more important than being on time. On the train home to Surrey, Michael looked at the napkin drawing Emma had given him. He thought about the life he'd built, the success he'd achieved, and the human connection he'd almost lost along the way. His phone rang. It was his daughter, Grace. "Dad, I know you're busy, but I really needed to talk. Are you free?" In the past, he would have said no. Would have promised to call later, tomorrow, next week. "I'm free," he said. Tell me everything. As the countryside blurred past his window, Michael Harrison realized that he'd spent years climbing a ladder without noticing who was falling beside him. Today, a 4-year-old girl with a teddy bear had taught him to look down, to see, to stop. He'd thought he was saving them, but perhaps they had saved him instead. 3 months later, a letter arrived at his office. Inside was a photograph of Sarah and Emma in a small garden, both smiling. Sarah had found work at a school in Leeds. Emma was enrolled in reception class. They looked happy. They looked home. The note was simple. Thank you for reminding us that kindness still exists. We're going to be all right. Love, Sarah and Emma. P.S. Emma says, Mr. Puddles sends his regards. Michael placed the photo on his desk, next to one of Grace. That afternoon, he started a foundation, Harrison and Webb Family Services, not financial services. Family Services. Help for people in crisis, emergency housing, meal vouchers, train tickets, home, because he'd learned that the most important journey wasn't to Manchester or any boardroom. It was to the bench where a frightened little girl sat alone, brave enough to ask a stranger for help, and wise enough to teach him that true wealth is measured in the moments we stop to see each other's humanity. The moments we choose compassion over convenience. The moments that change everything. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below and tell us about a time when a stranger's kindness changed your day. Your story might inspire someone else to stop, to see, to help, because we're all just travelers in this station called life. And sometimes the best journey is the one we take together.